Good afternoon, everyone. We are thrilled to welcome you to our third panel of the Valpo at Work April series. This evening, we are joined by 4 young alumni that are currently in law school and are here to share their perspectives on transitioning from undergrad to law school. We have Josh Felty here, who is a third-year law student at IU Moore School of Law in Bloomington. We have Julian Garner here, who's a second-year law student at Samford University Cumberland School of Law in Birmingham, Alabama. We have Olivia Holm here, who is a second-year law student at Loyola University, New Orleans College of Law, and she's in the Common Law Division. And we also have Victoria Bain, who is a first-year law student at the University of Illinois Chicago John Marshall Law School. So different years, different law schools. So we're very, very excited to have you. Thank you for taking the time out of your, I know, very busy schedules to talk to everyone. I am going to start with the first question, but to our attendees in the room, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. That way the panelists can see them, and we'll make sure we get everything answered in the next hour. But I will start first. If you guys could just give a little background on what you were involved in at Valpo, what made you decide to go to the law school you are currently at, that would be a great start, because I think that will generate some questions from the audience too.
Who would you like to start? Me? Okay, great. Thank you all for being here. I'm happy to get to talk to you all. So let me think. Things I was involved with at Valpo. I was in lots of stuff. Obviously spent a whole lot of time on school, but I'm trying to think. Student Senate, I was involved for for 2 years. I worked at Uptown, for those of you who know what Uptown Cafe is. I spent a lot of time there. But in terms of why I chose to go to law school, I mean, I originally thought I wanted to do like policy work, and that quickly changed. Most of you all, if you go on to law school, that will happen to you probably. What I thought that I wanted to do, I ended up tossing really quickly. So does that answer your question, Kelly? Great.
I don't know what to do. Oh, okay.
I know you guys aren't shy, so you guys
go,
just
Julian.
Go for it.
Just go, please.
I was like, we could alternate, guys, girls. I could go, whatever floats the boat. All right, guys. My name is Julian Garner. I graduated from Valpo in the spring of 2019. Majored in political science, minored in history. While I was at Valpo, I was involved, like Josh, in a lot of things. I was a student senator for the 3 of the 4 years I was in college. I transferred to Valpo my sophomore year, and I was a student senator all three years. I was also an active member of the Black Student Organization, BSO, and I was the president of Valparaiso University's chapter of College Democrats. So I'm a huge political nerd. That's actually in part or partly why I decided to go to law school. Originally, I said, well, maybe I could use my Juris Doctorate as a stepping stone into politics. I've since sort of shifted away from that. But I mean, I always knew that I wanted to use it as a sort of prerequisite to a lot of different fields or opportunities for employment. So either politics or, you know, just going the more traditional route and having my own practice or just being an attorney. Flash forward a year, nearly 2 years later, and so much has changed since then. I'm sure throughout this panel, we'll talk about how our perspectives shifted and how our goals sort of like altered over time. But I really just want to get a job and then talk about the other stuff later. But yeah, that's just, and I was a little bit of, I don't know if the pre-law organization existed when I was there, but it was very much in Kelly's mind during the time I was a student at Valpo. And I would always go over to the law school when Valpo's law school was up and running. And I would just like to be in that atmosphere. I'd go there for breakfast and study. And they had really good food. And that's how I really met Kelly, is just going to the law school and just sort of like being in there and being in that environment. So, yeah.
I'll talk. So I was only at Valpo for 2 years because I graduated 2 years early, but because I always knew I wanted to go to law school. But I was involved in the J board, links council, not really a lot. I studied abroad for a semester and stuff. I wanted to go to law school to practice family law, and basically my viewpoints really haven't changed. I still want to do what I went to law school to do, and I'm even more passionate about it now, I guess. But I guess that's me.
Okay, my name's Victoria. I'm the baby of the group. I graduated in 2020. I was a member of the women's swim, and that took up most of my time at Valpo. So I didn't do student senate like I probably would have if I had more time. I majored in political science and I minored in criminology. I'm very passionate about the criminal justice system and reforming the criminal justice system, but I also love foreign policy. So I decided to pursue my Juris Doctorate because I love to argue and write. So I was very interested in litigation, possibly politics. That's unlikely to happen now, but definitely the litigation side of things. I like standing up and making my point for people. I'm not sure what area of law I'll end up in, but that's the route I've taken so far.
Thank you all. I'm going to give you another zinger on this one. Can you tell the audience the difference between Valpo undergrad and then going to law school and how the academics are different, extracurriculars are different, all of them?
Okay, I guess I'll just start on this one. Yeah, so the workload I think was the biggest shock to me. It is so much more work. And if you go to law school, you probably, you had to work hard in school, right? But you might not have had to work that hard. And you'll definitely have to do that for law school. I think one of the biggest things for me was I had never sat down to like read something and not gotten it. And that happened to me, especially your first year. I had to read things over and over. I just wasn't used to that. You don't know how to do it yet. So when they say it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time, they actually mean it. I was like, okay, it'll be fine. It was a ton of work. So I think that was probably the biggest shock to me, was just how much time you actually had to put into it. Whereas like beforehand, I could balance school with work and a whole bunch of other things too, and still do well. So I was not prepared for like how much law school, especially the first year, will really like take over your life.
I can definitely add to that. I'm pretty sure each of us are all going to say the same thing. Law school, it is the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, I mean, it's not an understatement. I mean, there's a whole meme page about it on Facebook about how much work that we have to do on a regular basis. And it's, especially your 1L year, you're just sort of like thrown over into the deep end, and everybody sort of prepares you and they're just like, okay, it's going to be a lot of work, but you don't really comprehend it or understand it until you're actually in the lion's den. I mean, it's just nonstop. You really have to retrain your brain and reorganize how you just go about a lot of different things. I mean, in undergrad, I had a fairly easy time. I mean, I could do 1,000,001 things and, type up a 5-page paper in a day and go about my day and maybe get a B+ or an A- on it and just be fine. Can't do that in law school. Your legal writing classes are extremely intense. For instance, mine was called LLR, legal learning or writing or reading or something like that. But they teach you how to write like a lawyer. And those of us who come from like liberal arts backgrounds, it's unlike anything that you've ever done before. It's really quite methodical. And I used to always say, well, I'm a good writer. I've never gotten below a B on a paper. I mean, this will be a walk in the park. I was shocked when I got my first C- on my memo. And it takes days and days and days. You have to get the sources, kiss Google goodbye. You'll never see it again. There's going to be these new things called LexisNexis and Westlaw. They will be your best friend, and they will be the only thing that you use for the rest of your legal career and legal education. And just using those platforms alone are beast in their own way, and it's just a lot. So the only thing that I can recommend to you is to the summer before you go into law school, just relax, enjoy yourself, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends. You'll never see them again. I mean, you will, but not in the same way you're used to seeing them, and just enjoy the last bit of freedom that you have, because your life is going to take a crazy new turn, but it's completely worth it. So it's just a lot of work.
I would agree. When I started orientation 1L year, they're like, oh, we recommend you studying 5 to 8 hours every single day. And I was like, 5 to 8 hours? That's ridiculous. Like, no way. But then when I realized, like, okay, I have to read 50 pages each class, write my reading notes for each class, because like if you get cold called, like being unprepared for class is like the most embarrassing thing. Like, you don't want to do it. It just makes you look bad. And like, it's so embarrassing to have your teacher be like, you don't know this. And you're like, no, I don't know what that means. And so like you have to be ridiculously prepared just to go to class. And then after, like during class, you have to be taking your notes. Like I don't look at my computer really unless I'm looking at my reading notes, because it's distracting and stuff. So I always handwrite all my notes and then type up my notes after class. And it's a lot of work. Like it's crazy. Like I was not expecting that, just because like I was like, oh, I'm good at reading. But like this reading is very different from the regular reading. Like you're reading what judges write from like their opinions. Like it's straight from the opinion, all legal doctrine stuff. And it's a lot to wrap your head around. Like they use these big words you got to like look up all the time. And if your professor is like, what does this word mean? And you're like, I don't know. They'll get mad. Like you read something, you didn't look up what that word meant. And it's like, yeah, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot.
Well, I'm currently in my first year of law school. So as everybody already mentioned, I'm really in the thick of everything. I actually have all my finals next week, and I will be the first to tell you that these last 2 weeks of my life have been absolutely insane. I've had no time for myself. It's a lot. It's a lot. And like Olivia said, you're not reading like you read in undergrad. You're not given a peer-reviewed article that explains to you what this means and this was their conclusion. It's not straightforward like that. You're given a judge's opinion, a judge that has practiced law for probably longer than you've been alive, honestly, and they expect you to read that and know what they're talking about. Unlike everybody else, I've only been to law school in a pandemic, so all my classes have been 100% online. And I will say, I thought that would cut me some slack cold call wise and having some readings done. And I think I was like the second person to get called on in my property class. And yeah, you need to be prepared, because your professors and your classmates, it's unlike undergrad because you don't all have different majors where you're going into different areas after this. Your professors and your classmates are going to be your colleagues. So you want to present your best self 100% of the time. You really need to show up for yourself because you're establishing that rapport. And the last thing that I would add that no one's mentioned yet is law school teaches you to be very self-sufficient as a learner. And for me, that was a very large learning curve. You're not going to be given a study guide. In almost all of your classes, your final is your only grade. So if you don't understand something along the way, you have to be there for yourself and respect yourself enough to admit, you know what, I don't know what this is. And that's really hard to do in a class of 900 kids who are clearly all very intelligent because you all made it to the same school and level. It's kind of hard to be the first one to say, you know what, I don't get that. But I promise you, every time I've done that, I've walked away knowing what I needed to know after that. I learned from what I didn't know. And I would have 5 or 10 people in my class text me or email me and say, hey, that was a really good question. Can I get your notes on that? I didn't know that either. So you really have to be very self-sufficient. No one is holding your hand in law school. If you don't make it your first year, somebody else wants your spot. So just, I don't say that to intimidate anybody, but just be very aware of the position that you're putting yourself in. You're joining a profession. You're not just getting a job. So make yourself known in the community and, show up as your best self as much as you can. That does take a lot of time out of your day. You will not see your friends like you want to. You might think you'll have weekends off because school is Monday through Friday, but I promise you, you don't have weekends off. So just be prepared that if this is really what you want to do, you're putting in 3 years of really, really good work to do that.
I just want to mention something. Sorry. Victoria reminded me of something. Like, also, I was always used to really getting good, like, A's and stuff. That's not how it is in law school. If you get an A, that's wow, like, you are doing great. But like C's, that's average. Like, almost everyone gets a C. Like, that's good for you if you got a C. Like, congratulations. Like, A's and B's, unheard of, basically. So you should just get used to that too. Like, the grading is different, the expectations are different, a lot is different.
And if I can just really quick, C's, I used to always hate the saying C's get degrees, but they really do. And they might not get you that firm that's like one of the biggest ones in your hometown, but they'll get you out of law school into the bar. And you can still pass the bar despite your law school GPA or whatever. But if I could just emphasize a part that Victoria made, or really just bring more nuance to the one thing that really adds to the stress factor of law school is knowing that all of the hard work that you put into your whatever semester you're in is consolidated behind one grade. That killed me. Because in Valpo, I'm used to, okay, I might get an exam, but I would have had a midterm that was maybe 50% of my grade, or, I'm a political science major. So we would just have a string of papers all semester. And if you didn't do too well on that one, then, you can get a B on the next 3 and then end up with a B+ in the class or whatever. And that's not the case. Maybe in your legal writing class, but for your other classes, your crim pro class or your con law class or civil procedure or whatever, the only validation of your efforts is one grade that you receive at the end of the semester. So you get one exam to demonstrate your ability to understand or comprehend that material. And if you don't do well on it, like Victoria said, someone's sitting there to take your spot. And, building off of what Olivia said, if you get a C, it's not like you're getting a C on participation or like 3 assignments or this, that, and another. You're getting a C on one exam. That exam is a screenshot of how you performed in one moment in time. And so, don't be bogged down if you get a C. I think some law schools or law classes only allow for like 2 people in a class to get an A. So out of 50 other students or 48 other students, 50 in a class, only 2 are getting that A in that class. And then the majority are going to get a type of B or a C. And you just got to take that and go. So, yeah.
I know most of you, if not all of you, used your professors here at Valpo like no other. You guys interacted with them, you got feedback from them, you asked them questions. Has that differed in law school at all?
Personally, I got kind of more scared of some of my professors, like just with how they kind of intimidate you. And they don't do that to be mean. They're trying to prepare you for court almost. Like, I had my torts professor. She was the scariest woman I've ever met in my life. And she's 80 years old and blind, but she terrified me. But we couldn't chew gum in her class. We couldn't say, like, I don't know. Like, she was terrifying. And she was like, I do this because this is what a judge will do to you. And like, you just have to be ready for it. But so it's like, if you have to get over the ability that like they're scary to try and talk to them more, because like they're not as open as the Valpo professors. They don't want to be like, come to my office hours and let's hang out. They're like, if you come to my office hours, you better have a serious question to disturb me. So it's a little different.
I don't know what it is about torts, but I also have an extremely terrifying torts professor who put the fear of God into people. Like that's just what she was known for. So I don't know if that's just like a like-minded thing, but you have to go to the office hours, and there is no better source than the professor that teaches that class. And I mean, effort is huge in college. Like obviously professors in Valpo, they paid special attention to those that would reach out to them or email them or whatnot. But in law school, like if you're right on that edge of like a B plus to an A minus or whatever, those professors take note of that and they'll boost you. You know, if your exam performance isn't that well, but you're right on the edge of a grade that you could get, they'll say, well, this student was very participatory in class and they would come to my office hours. I know that they have a willingness to learn this material, so I'll give them that extra boost. So definitely reach out to your professors.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I've never actually been to my law school. Everything happened for me right as COVID-19 spread. So my law school has been my bedroom. But nonetheless, I think my first semester I was very intimidated, also by my torts professor, oddly enough. Um, I did the worst in his class. That's the only class I've ever done poorly in my life, which I got a C. It is not poor in law school, I promise you that. But I did reach out to him towards the end of the semester because I started to realize, you know what, I'm really not feeling great about this at all. Like I know I have this final coming up and this is one class where I'm just not getting it. It wasn't clicking. Torts is very complicated. And I reached out to him, and I will say this, you might be very scared of well, not scared, intimidated by your professors in class, and they're a whole different person in their office hours. I mean, they are regular people. But you have to think that when they're coming to a class the size of whatever class your law school might be, which is probably going to be bigger than your undergrad classes, they've got about, in my classes, I think we have about 150 kids per section. They have 150 of us to look at, try to get to recognize. If you're not going out of your way to go to their office hours or email them and check in or really anything to make effort, you're going to be another face in the crowd. That's not going to help you when it comes time to graduate at all. So make yourself known. Also, I have two professors, my criminal law professor and my contracts 2 professor, that I looked at. I cannot recommend doing this enough. Look at your professors on the school's directory, see what they write about. What have they published? What are their real interests? For example, my criminal law professor teaches criminal law for me, so you would think that that's what he does. Incorrect. He is an international humanitarian rights lawyer. He has been a lawyer in different countries, and that's something that I'm interested in. So I emailed him about that, and then we met up and talked about possible career paths for me to match that. Same thing with my contracts 2 professor. You'd think he's a contracts lawyer. No, he actually does a lot of civil rights in criminal procedures, criminal justice reform, which is something I'm super interested in. So again, that's something I would just meet with him and talk to him about. Even if you're not coming with a really strong question about class, if you have something in common with them, they're more than happy to help you because there's a good chance there's about 90 kids in your class that will never speak to them. And you don't want to be one of those 90 kids. You want to be one of those kids that when you graduate, they say, hey, I really remember her saying she was interested in this, and one of my friends works at this big law firm who needs somebody to do that, and I think she'd be a great fit. And there you go, you got a job. So just make yourself known. But Olivia did mention, like, make sure you show up to office hours with good questions. If you're going to office hours as just a drop-by student, yeah, that's true. Make sure you have a really good question. But if you just want to get to know your professors, don't hesitate to email them and reach out or see if you can meet them at another time. It's more helpful than you'd think. So
I actually had a professor that did get me a job in Indiana. It was random. I was like telling her I was from Indiana, and she was like, "Oh, I used to teach at the law school in Indianapolis." And next thing I knew, she was calling someone she used to work with, and I had a job in less than 5 minutes for the summer. So it does help to like talk to some of your professors. I didn't mean it to be completely don't talk to them.
So I think the like one thing I would add, because all of what you guys like said makes total, like, that's all good, like, awesome stuff. But the other thing too is like, if you don't get it, like if you don't get the like course, like reach out before the test. Like that's like your only chance to like get some help, because you're not going to know, like you only take one test, and so you don't know if you don't get it until that test, right? So yeah, I think that's the only thing I would add. I think I've used them the most that way, just as like I can't get feedback at all before I take this darn test. So reach out if you don't get it. They'll be more than happy to, because they like are nerds, right? Like they want to talk about this stuff. The like whole point of them like teaching this is they love to talk about it. And so if you can get them, yeah, they will absolutely love that. But I think that's the way that I've used them the most, is just like sort of pre-test like feedback, to like help me realize, do I get this, or am I completely, missing it? Because you might think that it makes sense, and then you talk and you're like, oh shoot, I don't understand this at all. So anyway, that's the only thing I would add.
We do have a question from the audience. Do you have any advice for students who gained an interest in law school towards the end of undergrad, your senior year, for example?
It's never too late to make that decision. I think, obviously, I mean, there's people who graduate and decide. I mean, I've got somebody in my class who graduated and wanted to like majored in computer engineering. And I think he took a year off or something like that and realized, this isn't my passion. I want to go to law school. So that's what he ultimately ended up doing. So there's never too late. Literally, there's no correlation between the type of classes and involvement or whatever you're doing in undergrad between like your decision or desire to go to law school. I mean, people come from a variety of different backgrounds and ultimately decide to go to law school, and they actually kick it and they do really, really well. So it's never too late to make that decision. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And just to like add, I would say don't feel like you have to decide now. It's totally good to take some time, because it's a big step. And like, I think you won't 100% get that until you do it. Like I look back on it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so young and didn't know what I was doing and all this stuff. And it's like all worked out super, super well. But like, yeah, I would just say it means more than you think it necessarily does. And so taking some time to really think about why you want to do it, and whether you want to put in the time, plus the like cost, that's not a bad decision at all. Don't feel like you have to go straight through. I think I felt rushed. I don't know why. But now I look back on that and I think I may have chosen to go to law school for the wrong purposes, but I'm really happy it's all worked out. And had I had more time, that might not have happened. So yeah, don't feel rushed at all. Like take your time. It's completely fine. Law school will always be there.
Josh, you specifically mentioned earlier that you changed your mind in what you wanted to do from when you entered law school to now. Can you explain a little further about that?
Sure. So let me see. Poli sci guy in school, right? So I was thinking like policy work. That's what I want to do. Spend some time on the Hill doing policy work. Had an absolute blast, and I thought I did work with some people who went to law school and thought, these people really know their stuff. Like they seem really smart. Like law school really helped them get there. And so I thought, okay, great. Like I will do that. I like school. I think I can do well at law school. And so that's what I sort of came into law school hoping to do. And, it just goes back to, you don't know what law school is until you're there. And that's basically what happened to me. Is I was like, this world is huge. There's so much more here than I even like could have like guessed was here before I started. So I mean, that's it. Like I just like my first semester just like blew my sort of doors wide open. And I was like, there's a lot I can do and try. So policy work is for sure like possible, but I decided I do want to spend some time practicing law first. And so just because there's so much out there to try, which is a great thing about the law too, is like you can do so many other things. And so once I learned what those other things were, it's like, well, why stick to this one thing that I think that I will like when there's a lot of other opportunities out there. So so yeah, you just don't know what you don't know, and that's basically what it came down to for me personally.
Did anyone else have the same experience?
Not really. I feel like a lot of the class, so your 1L schedule is made for you. You don't get to choose what you take. You're forced to take those classes. A lot of your classes 2L year the same way. You get a few electives, but like those classes I was forced to take, like contracts and stuff, I was like, nope, not me. I don't like this. But I feel like the more like electives I've been able to take and like experiencing different kinds of law, I'm like, okay, international law, I like that. I like other kinds of things, like I'm interested in that stuff, but I don't know like if my complete viewpoint has changed. You just learn about all of the different kinds of law there is.
So it looks like we have another question. We're going to get to the application process, which I know you all loved. How did you approach your personal statement? Did you write it with more wit, paint a vivid picture of yourself, etc.?
I'll just start off with this because this was a huge thorn in my side, and I tell everybody this. It was God and Kelly Anthony who got me through this process. There honestly, this could be a recommendation for Valpo, but there honestly could just be like, what, a 2-credit course or a 1-credit course solely dedicated to the law school application process, like the LSAT and applying and setting up an account. Like that lady helped me out so much with that entire process. Like, I don't know how I would have gone through it without her, but it's a whole beast, and it's incredibly expensive too. And that's something that a lot of people don't pay enough attention to. But it's definitely something that you have to do. It's one of those necessary evils. The good thing is there was a lot of fee waivers, so you might not have to pay the upfront cost for it, but just the other CAS fees, and then going to LSAT practice sessions, and then getting the LSAT study material, and then taking the LSAT. And then if you did horrible at the LSAT, taking it 3 and 4 times like I did. And just the mental stress of it all it's immense, but you can do it. In terms of your personal statement, again, Kelly Anthony is a huge resource on campus for it. So definitely go to her office and have her review it. Just put together some sort of framework, and you guys can work it out. But the big part that you should consider in terms of taking on your personal statement is just making sure that you separate yourself from the pack. These admissions committees are reviewing hundreds, if not thousands. I don't even, thousands might be too much, but definitely hundreds of applications in a given time period. And you want to catch their attention and make sure that your personal statement is something that really makes any committee realize that this person would be an attribute at my law school. And that's something that you really just have to make sure that you're getting together. Yeah, that's all I have to say. But yeah, paint a vivid picture. Talk about personal experiences. If you don't come from a struggle background, or if you don't have, this, I included this in my personal statement, but this all my life I've had to fight complex, then don't talk about it. Don't try to be something that you're not. Say, hey, while I haven't had horrible experiences growing up, I'm dedicated to helping people get through their bad experiences or to achieve a better outcome. And just make sure that your personal statement is authentic to who you are, and it just sets yourself apart. And then last thing, make sure that you get as many eyes on it as possible. This isn't something that you can just type up the night before and submit it. No, this is it. Like this, honestly, let's say you've got a 150 and another person has a 152. Let's just say that. But your personal statement was that more stellar than the person with a 152 or 151. They might go with you over theirs. That the personal statement or diversity statement can really be the deal breaker. So put some time into it and have as many people review it as possible.
Oh yeah, I think those are all really good points. I think the only thing I would add is like, in terms of what you write about, like write about whatever you can write well about, if that makes sense. You know, you want it to be a good piece of what you can like write. So, you know, don't try to force what you think they want to hear. You know, because I think, you know, we could talk about how much it actually helps you. Like, it might not help you that much, but you definitely don't want it to hurt you, right? So just do it well, whatever you end up talking about. I think that is not as big of a deal as you think that it is, because a lot of people end up discussing a lot of the same things, and that's okay. You just want to do it really well. So I think that's the only thing I would add.
Kelly helped me a lot with my personal statement. I was in her office like twice a week. But I focused on like what drove me. Why did I want to go to law school? What about like law school that attracted me to it? It was just like about me, and like you just kind of like write it about how you feel about law school. Like you might not be fully like into it like right now, but why did you even think about applying? What is into it that you like? So you have to kind of like make it about you, but don't be all about you almost.
Like everybody else, I definitely was in Kelly's office. I had a very different experience than probably any of you, I hope, going into law school, because I had shattered my right hand and I'm right-handed. So I remember walking into Kelly's office with my huge cast, and I was like, please help me. I had to take my LSAT left-handed. It was a struggle, but I agree with Olivia, and also Julie, everybody. I agree with everybody. Don't write about just you. They get to read about you in a resume. They get to read about you from your letters of recommendation. What's making you different than everybody else there? For me, I think I'm pretty sure my personal statement, we ended up writing about, you know, I wasn't even sure I wanted to go to undergrad. And then when I was dead set on it, I worked 3 jobs, was a full-time student athlete, and went to class full-time. And somehow, by the grace of God and Kelly, I maintained a 3.8 GPA and got a decent LSAT score. And, you know, I wrote that in there. Like, are you going to find another kid who's going to work 3 jobs and stay up all night to study to be here? Like, probably not, honestly. And yeah, if I had a pretty easy life, yeah. But am I going to absolutely kill it in this profession? Yeah. And you want to portray that to them. It's one of those points in your life where you really should be very confident in yourself. If you're not incredibly dead set on going to law school, that's okay. Law school will always be there. I promise you that. So don't rush into it, and make sure, like Josh said, it might not be the thing that gets you into law school, but you definitely don't want it to be the thing that keeps you out of law school. So have very well-formed thoughts. Have Kelly read it as often as she can and you can. Have your parents read it. Have your grandparents read it. I don't know. Have all of your friends read it. I mean, seriously, you don't want to make any mistakes in this. It shouldn't be the most stressful part of your law school process. It should be kind of fun. You get to, introduce yourself, but don't let it count against you, because they want to get to know you, and they're not going to interview you one-on-one per se. So make sure they really get to know who you are and why you'd be good as their coworker. Essentially, you're joining a profession. You're going to be in the bar with everybody. You're going to be their colleague. So make sure you can explain to them why you belong in this profession and how you can help further the profession.
Those are all awesome points. And thank you for the shout outs. You guys did not need to do that. But for those of you that are questioning personal statement and all that, like they all said, schedule an appointment. It's really fun to just bounce ideas, learn more about you. And honestly, that's sometimes where your statement comes from. It's just a conversation that we have and about your passion. Julian, you used the word authenticity, and I want to echo that. The personal statements about showing your true self, not anyone else's. but you. So these guys have heard me say this a gazillion times, so I apologize. It's gonna be flashback moments for you guys, but don't Google any other statement. Don't read what anyone else is doing. They're not you. So write and be true to yourself. And you're the one going to law school, no one else. So please do that. Another question, what extracurriculars are you involved in law school, and what types of internships, externships have you done to get where you are now? And especially for Josh, what type of full-time job do you already have lined up?
Yes. So I'll be working at a large law firm in Washington, D.C. So I'm super pumped about that. Thank you. So in order to get there, I mean, that's a hard question to answer, I think, because things never work out the way they're planned, right? So it was hard to plan for that. But in terms of law school, gosh, what extra stuff did I do? For like internships, I worked for U.S. District Court judge my 1L year. That was really fun. I worked for a justice on the Indiana Supreme Court. That was a couple semesters ago. That was super fun. Just to get to try, like, just to get to see the perspective of the court was so cool. I would highly suggest you do that if you ever can. Really, really cool stuff. Those are the kind of jobs that I had while in law school. Any chance you get to like write, take it, because that was also one thing I didn't get before I started law school, was like how much of my like job is going to need those skills. So get those while you can, while you're in school, whatever that looks like, because once you get out into the real world, you know, you can't get help in the same way that you can. So yeah, those are the types of things that I did while in law school. And I think those were just really good things to talk about when I was talking to firms. They wanted to hear about what type of work that I did, how that sort of helped me and how that shaped the way that I now want to practice law once I'm done with school. So yeah, I mean, I would just say do, and like also take the chance while you're in school to try some different things, because this is really your like last chance to sort of try some new cool stuff. And that will help you, because it's just as helpful to learn about what you do not want to do as it is to know exactly what you want to do too. But yeah, that's those are some of the things that I did while I was in law school.
Yeah, if I could just add one thing, those of you who are seniors, don't be afraid to take what I call GPA booster classes, classes that'll really just, if you're not quite at where your GPA should be at in terms of applying to law schools, take classes that just, perk your interest, or, offer you a new perspective. Like I took an Alfred Hitchcock class my senior year at Valpo and got an A in it, and I learned maybe too many facts about Alfred Hitchcock, but it was a cool class. But once you get to law school, there's going to be a variety of different things to get involved with. Maybe just kind of like cool out your 1L year and just focus on your actual studies, because at the end of the day, that is why you're there. But I'm sure you'll learn about trial journal and mock court, moot court. I'm not involved in a lot of those things. I'm really only involved in my law school's Cumberland Democrats group and BALSA, which is the Black Law Student Association. But that's it. But there's a lot of different things that, whatever law school you apply to will offer you. This summer, I'll be clerking at a mid-sized personal injury firm in Birmingham. That's where I go to law school at. And, I'm looking at doing maybe personal injury, basically any type of tort-based law. But yeah, I'm kind of forgetting a part of the question, but that's that's what I have to say about that. Yeah.
So this year, I guess, I'm a board member of the International Legal Society. But so that's what I've been doing. And then I'm also on the trial ad team, and I had an interview this morning for the national team. So that's basically just like we get a fake case and we argue against other schools about the case. We just argue back and forth. And then I'm also doing the clinic for my school next year. So basically, my school, we have multiple different kinds of clinics, but I'm the child's rights clinic. So I get my own client and I'm going to court with them. I'm writing all the briefs. I'm doing everything. And so like I'll have a limited license in Louisiana next year. So that's pretty exciting. My internship last summer was at Indiana Legal Services and it was all Zoom. So I didn't really feel like I got like a lot out of it with a Zoom internship, but it was interesting to say the least. Then this summer I'll be working at the Department of Child Services in Indiana as well. So you just gotta keep trying, get out there, get involved. Like I never thought I would be a litigator. I didn't really think I was going to be that great at talking. And then one of my friends was in trial ad and he was like, oh, be my witness for this case. And I was like, okay. And it just went from there. And I was like, okay, this is actually fun. I enjoy talking.
So since this is still my first year, I will say that my advice to you, if you do go to law school, is do not jump into a bunch of organizations in your 1L. You have no idea how busy you're going to be, and it's too late to back out once you've overwhelmed yourself. With that being said, I did indeed overwhelm myself. I did the 1L mock trial, which was a lot more work and more stressful than I thought it was going to be, which is why I felt so overwhelmed. However, it was a very, very good experience. I would recommend, if you already know off the bat you're interested in litigation or you like public speaking, that trial ad and mock trial are probably something you should look into. I also am a member of the Entertainment and Sports Law Society at my school, which is really cool because I love sports. And one of the things that I thought about going into law school was being possibly a sports agent or representing a sports union. I love that kind of stuff. So particularly baseball, and since they have a union, it was like perfect fit. So I've been able to do a lot of cool things with that society. We've talked to professional boxing promoters, and they helped me a lot at finals, which was awesome. I also joined the real estate society that they just started at our law school. I took property in my last semester, so my 1L1, and I have no idea why, but it just clicked into my head. And it was like a really easy class for me, and I really enjoyed it, oddly. So, so I ended up joining that society, which has also been super helpful. We talked to a lot of really big law firms, and you get your name out there. So I'd recommend doing light activity your 1L year. For internships, I was very, very lucky. Kelly helped me get an internship at a small law firm in Valpo during my undergrad. So I started writing briefs and memos my senior year of undergrad, which I really think helped by the time I got to law school in my legal writing class. So that was really, really awesome. And then when the pandemic happened, I kind of didn't really go into the office as much anymore. They didn't have a lot of business coming in. And I developed like a really good working relationship with them, which was awesome. And they helped me a lot. Still, I can text them questions and they'll help me. And then through my law school, my career advisor, I had mentioned to her that I was from Indiana, and she was like, oh, hey, we just had this pop up on the Career Center page. They're looking for a law clerk in Maryville. You should go interview. And I was like, oh, okay. So I called the firm and I was like, hey, I don't really have a writing sample ready yet, but I saw your posting was going to expire in one day. I'm really interested. Is there any way that we could do an interview? And I was in the next day for an interview, found out they were all Valpo grads. So they loved that I was a Valpo grad, and I got the job and I've been working there ever since. So put your name out there for your internships and externships. I will probably do a judicial externship at some point, which I think anybody who goes to law school should, because as Josh said, it's going to be really helpful to you when you're in the field arguing to know what a court thinks about certain arguments, about how people write, or just in general, what they're thinking when they're all together. That's going to be so beneficial to you. So I'll probably do that at some point at the federal courthouse in Hammond over here, because they're always looking for interns now. And yeah, just, I mean, try as many different areas of the law as you can. I'm really lucky that at the law firm that I'm at, the 3 lawyers that are there all practice different areas of the law. And so I get to kind of bounce around. And I can tell you that I absolutely do not like family law. I don't want to do another divorce case in my entire life. And I can also tell you that I don't know why, but I love zoning restrictions, and I can write you anything on land zoning. So it's things that you never really think about, that when you get to law school, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm really good at this. So just make sure you're putting your foot in as many doors as you can, and those doors will be left open for you. And that's the best way to get your options after law school and during law school to ensure that you have a fun learning experience.
And if I could just add, just go into law school with an open mind. I mean, again, like I can't emphasize this enough. You guys won't know anything. I didn't know jack, like going into law school. So if you like, there's a saying, I don't know if you guys have heard this too, but like your 1L year, they scare you to death. Your 2L year, they work you to death. And then your 3L year, they bore you to death. So your 1L year, make your studies your number one goal, because those are the grades that are going to follow you, you know, for the remainder of your law school year. Like, I mean, it's unfortunate, but your first semester of law school can either make or break you. And then your 2L year, when you maybe get a little bit more cushion on your GPA, I was deprived of that because of the pandemic. So my second semester, everything went pass fail. So anyway, that's a different story. But anyway, my second year of law school, I had all of my friends. They were involved in a lot of different activities, or organizations on campus. Going into law school, I said, I'm going to do stuff, maybe criminal justice or, you know, civil rights. I don't want to have anything to do with that now. And I actually found interest in family law, personal injury, and even wills, trusts, and estates. So, you know, you're going to have time to realize what you want to do. Your 2L year, I love litigating now. Like I just wrapped up my class called Basic Skills or Advanced Trial Advocacy classes. And I had to put on a full trial from fall until spring. And I'm like, wow, this is actually what I want to do. So I could see myself maybe doing defense civil or something like that. So you'll learn what you want to do throughout law school. Just go into it with an open mind.
That is awesome advice from all of you. Thank you. So we only have 7 minutes left. So if anyone has any questions that are burning, make sure you put them in the chat. And while we wait for those, I'm going to ask you kind of a final question from my end, and I'm combining a couple that I've seen come through. But what is the biggest piece of advice you would like to leave the students on how to get ahead in law school, or to prepare for law school as undergrads at Valpo right now?
So that's a really hard question because I don't know how much you can necessarily do right now. Just because you're just not going to get it until you're actually there, which I guess that's the one thing I would want to leave you all with is it's hard, and it's okay. It's hard. And you may feel like you're the only one who doesn't get it. Like, oh my gosh, it's just me who doesn't understand this. It's absolutely not. Everybody's going through the exact same thing. That's part of the process, is they're really trying to break down the way that you like approach problems. And so it's like, you're not going to know anything, and that's completely fine. And so I would say that is just be okay with the fact, even though it's hard and you've probably never had to do that before, be okay with the fact that you're not going to get it, and that like most of the people do not either. And I guess the only other thing I would say is like, yes, your first year is big, right? But after your first job after law school, like people don't care about that stuff too. So know that like, if you don't do super well in law school, that's okay. Like life will go on, and you can definitely work and get to the place that you still want to be, even if you're not in the top 10% of your law school. So I would say those two things.
I would say, so for me, I got very involved with my studies, and it was almost like ruining me. Like I should not have been studying until 11 o'clock every single night. It consumed me, honestly. You should definitely just always be able to still take time for yourself, because it's a lot. Like they will always, like any lawyer you meet, they will always say, make sure you leave your work at the door. Like don't be bringing it home with you. You don't need to do that. You have to take time for yourself. And that goes for law school too. Like, you are in the deep of it, but you still have to remember, like, my sanity is not worth getting a law answer right or knowing what respondent superior means or whatever. Like, it's not worth it. Like, you have to have a balance, and you should probably learn that balance when you can now in Valpo. Like, that's, I guess you can practice that now, learning a balance.
If I could just add one thing, and you'll know this more when you actually get to law school, but get to know your classmates. No one else is going to know your struggle more than the people that are right alongside with you. And if you can just, say, hey, can I get that outline? Or did you get this? Or like during exam times, can I just walk through, this model penal code thing that you're going through in Crim Pro? Like, those people are going to be right next to you. And it's okay if after your first semester, again, like, I can't stress this enough, I know, hey, most of us are sort of type A anyway. That's why we decided to go to law school, and that's why you guys are in this group chat. So if we're not getting the exact grades, like, everybody on this panel had way better GPAs than me, so I'm just gonna throw this out there. But I just wanted to say, like, so I actually wasn't too crushed when my GPA was bad, because I'm like, at least I made it, Lord. I'm good, I'm here, that's all I care about. But I will say that, like, it's okay if you don't get the grades that you anticipated receiving after law school, and to just be okay with that and just say you get a whole nother semester. I mean, and it's going to switch. Like, people that came in swinging their first semester, hey, their GPAs by their spring semester might have had a cosmic shift. So, and you could be that person that trades spots with them. So it's fine if you don't hit the mark, right the entire time. Right after my 1L year, I wasn't really feeling it. And Kelly knows, I even tried to transfer. And, that's something that you can also consider too. I'm glad I didn't, because I actually really have grown to love my law school now, and love the area that I'm practicing in. I'm not practicing in, but going to school in. So, just be open to things, be okay with not hitting every single mark, and you'll be fine, guys. Like, no admissions committee is going to admit somebody who can't do it. You just have to meet them halfway and put forth the effort. So.
I guess going off of all of that, that's all really good advice. What you can do now to prepare yourself, just keep taking that LSAT. Take as many practice LSATs as you possibly can. Honestly, let Kelly annoy you about all the LSATs and do them. Listen to Kelly. That's what you can do now. Sign up for the Khan Academy LSAT study sessions. I didn't pay for an LSAT study guide or LSAT sessions. I did the Khan Academy one, and I turned out okay. So I'm here to preach that one. What else can you do now? I mean, honestly, start having informational interviews with lawyers. Just put your name anywhere it can go. You're going to feel really awkward saying, like, hey, can I meet with you to ask you about your job? But you really want to be doing that, because when you start interning and externing at places, it's almost a culture shock. Like, wow, this is really what lawyers do. Write all the time, files all the time, paperwork all the time, calling clients all the time, tracing down any piece of evidence you can get, looking for medical records. I mean, it's just crazy. You don't think about everything that they really do. So I would encourage people, go do informational interviews with lawyers. That's actually how I got my first internship that Kelly helped me with, is I just wanted to sit down and ask him about his job. So do that. You're definitely going to want to get to know people in the community where you plan on practicing, which will likely change when you're in law school, but that's okay. It's honestly really good to have connections all over. And then for law school, I cannot agree with what Olivia said anymore. You see so many people run themselves into the ground. They're 1L. If you catch on to the pattern of 1L, you will set yourself up for success. I think the toughest part of 1L1 is no one tells you what an outline is. So you're sitting there thinking, well, how do I outline a course? Like, what does that mean? Which I actually have a stack of my outlines next to me. So you literally take all of your course notes. Mine is like this thick. This is just one course on jurisdiction, civil procedure, and you put all your notes in here, and that's how you study. And you have to do it in a way that's best for you. I wish somebody would have told me in my 1L1 to outline as you go. And that's what I did this semester. And all my outlines are done now. I had my last day of class. My outlines are all done. It's really nice and refreshing. So just meet with a professor when in your 1L1 and ask them, hey, how do you recommend outlining this course? I'd really like to outline as we go. I guarantee you they'll be impressed with you, and I guarantee you won't be as stressed at finals. And also, time management is huge. I just like, you have to budget your time. You're going to have 150 to 200 pages of reading. For me, my constitutional law class, I have about 300 pages of reading every single day. I'm no lie. And you have to read all the dissents, all the concurrences, and you better know what those are when you get cold called on. So find classmates that you guys can help each other outline, form study groups early, buy Quimby. You're going to hear that before you go to law school, so I won't repeat it, but Quimby, best purchase of your life as a 1L, and do your outlines and just budget your time wisely. My first semester of law school didn't do anything. I was doing really bad. Honestly, I never went out of the house. It was during the pandemic, so it was even worse because like, where was there to go? And it really affected me. And finally this semester I said, you know what, every Sunday I'm going to do whatever I have to do during the week and Fridays and Saturdays, so that on Sundays I can do whatever I want to do. And please try to do that when you're in law school. You will have so many classmates come to you like, oh my gosh, all I do is study. This is horrible. I promise you, that's not worth getting maybe 2 more answers right on the final. It's just not. Don't do that to yourself. Don't ask other people how they did on the final. Don't compare yourselves to other people's grades. I like to tell people, stay in your lane. You're in your lane, put your blinders on, stay in your lane, because it's only going to freak you out more if you compare your raw scores to others. Your raw scores in law school doesn't matter. You're going to be put on a curve. Don't try to figure out the curve. Don't even mess with it. Just say, okay, I did my best and now I'm done. And that's probably my biggest advice from my 1L.
That is awesome advice from all of you. I know you guys could go talk about this for another hour, as could I. So we'll have to do this again soon. But just since we are out of time now, I want to thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate your valuable time. We know finals are coming up, and your advice is invaluable. For the current students on the call, keep in mind we have more upcoming panels this month. Check our Instagram page at Valpo Careers to see all the details. And thank you again.